Hi, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bryndís. I like to read and I like to talk about it on this channel. And today we're doing my top 10 of 2025. Yes. First though, I want to mention that there's going to be a tiny little change to the channel. I have so far been uploading on Sundays, which is when this video is uploaded. But I need to change my uploading schedule, and I think, or I will from now on, be uploading on Tuesdays. So there will be a video on Tuesday which will be my weekly update. And then from then it will be on Tuesdays. I hope you won't mind too much, but it just makes more sense with like when I'm able to actually film the weekly update, and I don't want to be filming the weekly update like days before I can upload it. So thinking that I can then film and edit on Mondays and have it ready for upload early morning my time on Tuesdays. So from next Tuesday, that will be the timeline for this channel, uploading schedule for this channel. But today we're talking about the 10 books that I read, the 10 books that I loved the most this year. Let's start with just a little bit of a reading statistics for 2025. I read 101 books, which is almost right on average for me. I would say that on average I read 100 books a year. That's been the kind of, it's been the thing for the last 8 or 9 years, I think. Yeah, some, give or take, obviously, but about 2 books a week, I think, is very much the norm. I track my reading. I have a reading journal that I track my reading, but I also do it on Goodreads. And I always put my reading goal to be 52, 1 book a week. I feel that if I cannot finish 1 book a week on average, I am either dead or in a coma or something, because, there's no way that I'm not reading at least 1 book every week. But 101 books. And I did decide, generally I'm not like into stats, like I don't check like the genre or anything like that. But I thought it would be fun to do that this year. Well, it's very rough genre. Basically, it's classics and non-classics. That's basically how I think about my reading. I either read classics, which is then classics and modern classics, or I read contemporary books, or like books published in the last 20, maybe 30 years. I don't know exactly the time limit for modern classic, but I would, for example, technically I don't consider Stephen King to be a modern classic, although his first books were obviously published. His first book was published more than 50 years ago, so technically, but anyway, never mind. I was very surprised when I looked at my statistics, my stats. First of all, this was the year of rereading. I reread 46 books out of 101. Almost half of my reading this year was rereads. And that was mostly Agatha Christie. I started it late 2024, but then throughout until June of last year, I finished all of Agatha Christie. This was a reread for me. And for example, I think in June, I only read Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is becoming the author that I turn to when I either don't know what to read, or if I'm just needing something fun, comfortable, and just something that I know I'm going to enjoy. And specifically the audiobooks narrated by Hugh Fraser. He's my favorite, with the Poirot series and also some of the standalones. But there are also other narrators that do a really good job. Yeah, so 46 rereads. In there were also Sherlock Holmes. I read all of Sherlock Holmes as well this summer. I read, and a couple of other books that I read. But yeah, 46 books that I reread. That's a lot. That's huge. that's a lot of books. But they were absolutely fantastic. And I'm not including here the 3 Lord of the Rings books because I did reread the trilogy, but I kind of read selected parts of each of the books, so I haven't counted them in these numbers. I read 3 nonfiction, which is actually, I think, quite unusual for me because I do tend to read a lot of nonfiction, but I think that I kind of do it in like, I have like these seasons of, these eras of nonfiction, and then I don't read them for a while, and then I will just almost only read nonfiction. And obviously I'm not counting academic books. I read thousands and thousands of academic nonfiction books, but I'm not counting them for this. So 3 nonfiction, and all of them very interesting. And then the number that actually surprised me so much that I am still not believing it is that if you would ask me what type of a reader I am, I would say that I am a classics reader. I read classics. 18th, 19th, early 20th century. Those have for a long time been my favorite type of literature. Now I am like all into Victorian literature, and yeah, I always kind of categorized myself as a classics reader. I read 18 classics this year. And by the way, I'm not, even if I would not be counting the rereads separately, I don't count Agatha Christie as a classic, although technically she would be she is considered modern classic, but for me, I count her in my mystery category, but 18. And I'm flabbergasted that I read 34 non-classics, which is like contemporary literature. Those are historical fiction, fantasy, thrillers and mysteries. I think there was some magical realism, sci-fi elements type of books, or alternative history type of books. And yeah, I'm absolutely flabbergasted by the fact that I actually read twice as many non-classics than I read classics. I don't understand, but I'm not complaining. I had a really good reading year. But okay, let's go into my favorites. So I would say that the top 2 are definitely my top 2, and I think that my most favorite book of the year is my most favorite book ever. And I always make this kind of caveat that it's obviously the Lord of the Rings trilogy is my favorite books ever, ever, ever. So I'm not counting them. So, but apart from them, my favorite book of the year is my most favorite book ever. But book number 2 is a very close second. And so these are all 5 stars. I am generally quite generous with my rating. And if I like a book, it engages my emotions, and it's a book that I can see that I would like to read again. If the book is good, well written, good plot, good characters, all other things, I don't nitpick things, and I will just give them a 5 stars. So I have a lot of 5 stars this year, and I think that's also because this year my goal was to not have a goal. I did have a list, like 25 books in 2025. I think I read 3 of them, and then I just abandoned the list. This was the year where I finished my PhD, and it was the most difficult year at the same time as it was my best year ever in my personal and professional life. So my goal was just to read and enjoy reading, and just remember that reading for me is relaxation, escapism, And I wasn't trying necessarily to learn anything or like expand my horizon this year. That's something that I'm gonna do in 2026, but in 2025, it was just about comfort. So the books I chose to read were almost all of them, except a couple, kind of within my comfort zone. So I'm not surprised that there were a lot of 5 stars. But not all of them are on my 10 best books. And again, it's a little bit difficult to rank them. I am going to rank them, but the ranking is a little bit fluid. You will have seen the books in my thumbnail, but in the thumbnail they are not in order, just so you know. So, I'm also going to mention them. I will mention them in the description. If you don't want to know the order, don't look at the description until after. But they are in order in the description. So anyway, book number 10 was historical fiction published in 2024, and that is the Trouble with Mrs. Montgomery Hurst by Katie Lumsden of the YouTube channel Books and Things. This was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. And you know, I think I made a comment on, I don't know if it was on my channel or if it was on Katie's channel, that like this should be a series. Like I would like to know everything about all the people, all the characters here. This was just really whimsical and kind of light, but also with emotional depth and you know, characters that were going through some rough things. And there is a queer representation in this book. There is, you know, it takes place in the 19th century in England, or in Victorian England, or just before Victorian England. In Victorian England, 1841. And, you know, it's the marriage season. So it's very much Jane Austen meets Elizabeth Gaskell, but with some cool twists, like a little bit modern twists to it. So I thought this was a fantastic book. I bought this copy when I was in the UK in the fall of 2024 and in Brighton. So it's actually signed by Katie, which is cool. But I am not a hardback person, so I loved this book so much that I actually went and I bought the paperback to have on my shelves. So I'm gonna keep this copy, but I might also, maybe if someone in my life wants to read this book, I might gift them this book if they want it. But yeah, paperbacks fit better on my shelves, and I like this cover as well. So it's definitely a sign that I really like this book. So number 10, The Trouble with Mrs. Montgomery Hurst by Katie Lumsden. Number 9 is, I did go back and forth with some of this rating, because I feel like I said, they are a little bit fluent. But I decided after a long time thinking about it that my book number 9 is a world masterpiece, classic Russian literature, Anna Karenina by Eliot Tolstoy. And I own this absolutely gorgeous edition. I did listen to this as an audiobook, and it was in a different translation that I listened to. I was trying to follow along, and I could see that there were some differences in the translation. So I don't know, I listened to it in English. So I don't know, and this is also the English translation, one of them. So I don't know what would be the best translation or most accurate to the original Russian. But the one that I listened to was fantastic. So this is a book. It's almost 1,000 pages, and I don't remember the exact length of the audiobook, but it was long. But this is the type of book that, I wanted to read for decades. Anna Karenina, it's very famous. It's, one of those books that you kind of feel that you should read in a way. And at least if you like classics, it's one of the books that I feel like should be on your list if you want to read them. That you should read them if you can ever say that you should read anything. And yeah, I remember having mixed feelings when I was reading it, but I didn't really necessarily like Anna Karenina very much. But there are basically, I feel like there are like 3 couples, and they're kind of stories and kind of going through life. And it's very interesting also just the history of Russian society at this time. And yeah, it was just very good. So book number 8 was also very good, obviously. It was a huge surprise to me, and it was one of 2 books on this list that was recommended to me by Ellen at Ellen Made Book Club. And I had been seeing this book going around on BookTube, but also like in the bookstore here in Iceland, and people talking about it. And so I had been thinking about it for a while. And then it was when Ellen recommended it to me, I was just okay, I'm gonna read it. So I listened to it again as an audiobook, in Icelandic actually, but I do own the copy in English. And this is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn, Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a historical novel following Evelyn, Hugo, who is a Hollywood actress, a star, movie star. And it follows her kind of from the beginning until like, her end. Or she is like, so there's a journalist who goes to Evelyn Hugo's house when Evelyn Hugo is old. And Evelyn is telling her life story, basically. And there are some twists and turns in there that you are like, okay, interesting. And I thought it was just the writing is just really good, and I got really engaged with the characters and with like the experiences of Evelyn as a character, as a beautiful actress in Hollywood, her like marriages, and yeah. I need to read more by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think I'm hearing really good things about her as an author, and like if this book is any measure, then yeah, she's definitely is. But this book, I remember crying at least, so that's always a good sign for me. I like it when books make me cry. I don't know what's wrong with me, but that's the way it is. But yeah, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, 100% recommend. I think this is, the historical fiction element of it is really fantastic, but it also plays into our like modern lives, and it's just very good. Book number 7. I had to restrain myself very much for not putting all 5 of the Charles Dickens books that I read. No, all 4 of the Charles Dickens books. Were there 5? I can't remember. I read 4 or 5 Charles Dickens in 2025. And I had to restrain myself from not putting all of them on this list. There are 2 of them on this list because I couldn't do any, like, it just had to be. I am reading his books, most of them for the first time, and it's just been a fantastic experience for me. So the book that I decided to put at number 7 is The Old Curiosity Shop. I had never heard of this book. There are a lot of Charles Dickens books that I have never heard of. And so I'd never heard of this. This is, probably one of his least famous, at least maybe in Iceland or maybe outside the UK or outside the English-speaking world. I'm not sure. But this, so good. So good. I think at the moment I've read 5 of his books. At the moment it's number 3 of the 5. So one of them I read this year in 2026, so it's not on the list. But It was just, I mean, it says here that it was criticized for its sentimentality, and it is sentimental or emotional at least. I don't know if that's the same, but Nell Trent, the main character, this young girl who is trying to keep her grandfather from gambling away all of their money and everything, and this pursuit for riches, which is kind of something that gamblers and people with gambling addictions become like fixated on or obsessed about. And it's heartbreaking, but there's also this kind of hopeful tone a little bit to parts of it. I was devastated by parts of it, and Charles Dickens' writing is just phenomenal. And here, obviously, there are characters here that are very cartoon-like bad people. And I did definitely find that some of his descriptions of one of the villains is definitely, you would not be able to write like that today. It's quite offensive. So you always have to think about that when you're obviously reading classics, when they had a different way of looking at a different type of people. But I don't know, it just completely engaged my imagination, and just it was just so good. Okay, I can't talk too long about each book, because then it's going to be hugely long video. Anyway, fantastic. The next book is also a classic, and number 6 is The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. And I think it's really interesting because I've seen more than one people say that this is their least favorite George Eliot, and they like think it's horrible and really boring. And I'm like, what? I love this book. I think I really loved her nature descriptions, and I remember just feeling at some point if I closed my eyes, I could see the field that she was describing, and I could just reminisce back when I was a child growing up at the outskirts of my hometown with fields and sheep and, the river and all these things. I could just feel it brought up a lot of good memories for me in that regards. And I think it's just really beautiful. So we have a mill. We have a mill. And I can't remember, what are they? Maggie Tolliver and her brother, Tom, who are growing up. Their father is the mill. He works on the mill. He's not the mill owner, I think. Oh my God, it's been a while since I read this book. But I don't know. I love the relationship between the brother and sister and how that kind of changes. And I love Maggie as a character. And I don't know, the writing of this book is also just absolutely gorgeous. Such good writing. And yeah, it was just one of the highlights of the year, obviously, and just excellent. And then another classic that I have, book number 4, was also just fantastic. Now, technically, this is a reread. I think I read the abridged version in college or high school, but I can't remember anything. I remember watching the BBC adaptation of it, but I'm not sure either. And I didn't remember the story, so I'm counting this as a first read, and that is Nickolas Nickelby by Charles Dickens. This is a huge book, but this book is his second book that he published, and it is just, oh my God. I mean, obviously, you know Charles Dickens, and I know that he can be really funny, and his writing I think is really cool. He has these, but he's also, I feel that he's kind of known for his kind of very stark characters, and like I said, some of these characters are quite cartoon-like and very exaggerated villains and very kind of exaggerated nice good people. Like there's, they're very stereotypical. But in this book, this book definitely had that. The villain here definitely was very villainous. And Nickolas Nickelby and his kind of family were very nice, lovely people. But, oh my God, the emotional, like, the emotional impact this book had on me is just insane. And I thought it was just the way he describes the horrendous injustices of not only Victorian, but in this case, Victorian society, which is obviously an ongoing thing for how poor people are treated and just the horrendousness of how evil people can be so horrible. It was just so well done. And I thought this was just fantastic. And like this was like very, very much close to the top. Like, I don't know. It was such a good book. So good book. So far, this is my favorite Dickens of the 5 that I've read. And yeah, it's so good. And it is very long, but it's 100% worth the. So number 4 on this list is the only book that I actually don't own in a physical copy yet. I do want to buy it in a physical copy, but I haven't seen it in my local bookstore. So I still loved this book, and it was also a recommendation by Ellen at Ellen Made Book Club, and it is The Book of Guilt by Chidgey. So this was a complete surprise to me again, as many of these books actually were. So this is historical fiction, but it kind of is alternative history. So it takes place in the late 70s in England, in a world where nobody won the Second World War. I don't want to say too much, obviously, because you should go into this book knowing as little as possible. But it does follow these three brothers, and who are being raised in a children's home, basically. But they are the only children left there, and they are being raised by these women. There is Mother Morning, Mother Day, and Mother Night, I think. And very slowly, you realize that there's something really maybe not okay going on in this world. And it is quite creepy and disturbing, and it raises very important questions for us, I think, in today's society about who is a citizen, who is a human being, who has rights and who doesn't, and all these kind of questions. And it's about also really much about the other. We are here, and then there are other people who are different, and they are kind of being othered completely. And they don't have the rights because they are different. And so it's a very good book, I think, for those kind of that type of thinking to take place. And I would recommend that this is a book for teenagers, definitely, I think, to kind of talk about with them. It's so good. The writing is really good, and the how you slowly are, you kind of have this feeling. I feel almost from the start that this is what is going on? But it slowly unravels, and slowly you realize exactly what is going on. And just, I'm not going to say anymore. This is very good book. You should read it. It took me forever to read this book because it's very long and I did not have an audiobook, so I had to physically read it, and I was obviously busy with other things, but I'm still thinking about it, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I think that this may be one of the best fantasies I've ever read. It's not just the world building and all the things, it's also just the writing, the character, like descriptions and the kind of setup of the characters. They are very strong and you can really visualize them. The dialogue, the plot, the suspense, the emotional impact, it's such a good book. And I'm currently reading A Day of Fallen Night, which is the prequel to this book, and that one is also like they're the same, like their quality is still there, is there as well. But so this is, it takes place, obviously it's a fantasy, it takes place in this different world where there are dragons and worms that are kind of dragon-like creatures, and then there are magic, but there's also this kind of religious or religion that is quite fanatic and like that will like definitely burn the witches if they find the witches, and there is a matriarchy where the queen always gives birth to a daughter who basically looks like so the queens always look the same. Basically, it's very. I wouldn't necessarily think that this is like when I read the description about it or think about it. It doesn't sound necessarily like something fantastic, but it is. It is fantastic, and yeah, it's so good. And I know that the third book is out, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it when it's been published in when I can find it in this version of the paperback. But yeah, I'm reading now I can show you here. It's a prequel. It was published after this one, but it's a prequel. It's called A Day of Fallen Night. Also huge, but yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. If you really want to read really good quality fantasy, this is the series for you. I will say though that if you don't like politics, like court politics and intrigue and all these things, this is not the series for you, for sure, because it's very heavy on those things, but I like that, so perfect fantasy book. Okay, now we are in my top 2. Number 2 is a book that absolutely devastated me, and that is Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell. And as you know, the movie is out, and I haven't seen the movie, but I don't think I'm going to go to the cinema to see it, because what I'm hearing is that people are devastated. So I think I'm just going to wait until it's on, TV or Netflix or something and watch it then. But oh my God, this is holy moly. I also read The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell this year, and that one is also, it didn't make my list, but it's still a very good book. Maggie O'Farrell, I really like her. I need to look at more of her books. But yeah, so this one won the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2020, which is not a surprise because it's just so good. So this is Hamlet, in case you don't know. It's a historical fiction, takes place in London, no, not in London, in Stratford-upon-Avon, and it's about Hamlet, it's about Shakespeare's wife and her 3 children, Hamlet being one of them. So there are 3 siblings. There is the older sister, and then there are the twins. One of them is Hamlet. And their mother, Agnes, is basically taking care of them, raising them, because Shakespeare is in London, with the Globe and, with his plays and all those things. And it is... So, like with the other books, the writing is phenomenal. And so I feel that I can follow a book that is plot driven. I can follow a book that is character driven. But I prefer, obviously, when all of those are, the plot and the characters are, when it's like a mixture of the two. And when the writing is really good, it's... But it's also just very interesting, and interesting to, like, for the historical nerd in me, to read historical fiction that takes place during that time. And it's, it is based on Shakespeare and his family, but it's still like dramatized. It's not necessarily 100% correct. Yeah, I just, oh my God, when those last few pages, oh my God, I almost want to cry just thinking about them. It was so good, so good. So yeah, book number 2 on my list. And then book number 1. I just feel like joy in my heart when I think about this book. And that is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. This book is now my all-time favorite. And yeah, so this is a Victorian novel, takes place in Manchester. And it follows, what's her name again? Oh, I'm sorry. I always forget everything about names of characters. Margaret, I think. And so she lives with her parents. Her father is some sort of a minister. They live in this small village. And then her father follows his religious, what is it called? Religious kind of beliefs, and leaves the Anglican church and becomes, I think, a Methodist or something like that, and therefore loses his position in the village. So they move to Manchester, and this takes place in Victorian England, in the periods in north of England, kind of where with all the industrialization, and it was obviously a time of a lot of turmoil. And they are very poor because obviously he's lost his position as the vicar or something like that, or like one of the priests of the in the parish. And so they have to try to figure out how to survive. And then there is the mill owner or the factory owner, and his relationship with the main the heroine. And it's so funny because I'm always like, well, I don't really read romance novels. And my all-time favorite classics always have these absolutely beautiful love stories. And I think that this is one of the most beautiful love stories that I've ever read. I think all of these books have beautiful love stories, basically. Yeah, but Elizabeth Gaskell is, I think I can say that she's my favorite classical author at the moment. Yeah, she surpassed Jane Austen. And definitely Charles Dickens is like creeping up there as well. But 95% of the work by Elizabeth Gaskell that I've read, I've absolutely loved. And this is just... I think that if you are afraid to read classics, or not afraid, maybe you're just not used to reading classics, but you would like to maybe try a Victorian book or try, a classic book, I think you should try this one. I don't know if... Yeah, I think you should. It's just absolutely beautiful and fantastic, and the relationship between the two main characters is just... It's really good. Okay, I'm sorry that this was a little bit longer than I was hoping, but I do still hope that you enjoyed. And let me know if you read any of these books or if any of them sound intriguing to you. And we can have maybe a little bit of a chat in the comments about them. But yeah, this 2025 was a really good reading year, like I said, and I'm just looking forward to 2026. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one on Tuesday. Bye.